Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast with our three-hole hitter actually starting at the top of the card here. We are hitting the Thursday night and the Friday slate. We got Tony Meija from WagerTalk.com, at Meija Dinero on Twitter. Tony, welcome in. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling a little better. Dealt with a change of temperature flu, which is a big thing in Florida, obviously, because it goes from 80 to 50 and back and does whatever it wants. So it always ends up landing me on the IR. But I am playing hurt, and we'll press forward. So looking forward to breaking down these early Thursday and Friday college football games with you.
We do have one on Thursday, the Egg Bowl, Mississippi State at Ole Miss, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, Thanksgiving Day, which is tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday, 61 being the total, a little tick down from the total opener, 63.5 down to 61 right now, Tony. -2, that's Ole Miss in Oxford, like in anything, Egg Bowl Thursday night.
Well, the people should know that rain is expected. So if you want to bet a shootout, you're going to have to hope that receivers will hold on to the ball, and maybe we'll get a fumble that'll go our way with a scoop and score, because it is expected to be messy. This is the third Egg Bowl between Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach, and Lane's got a 2-zip advantage, 31-21 last year, 31-24 in 2020. So from that standpoint, this is a spot for Mississippi State to try and get right. Will Rogers has been a part of the first two games. He threw for 440 yards in the first meeting and 336 last year. So, Bulldogs are going to try to move the ball through the air. Lane Kiffin has been running the ball a lot more this season. He's got two great backs that make life easier for him. And obviously Matt Corral is gone, and Jackson Dart is a guy that also calls his own number. So, I think my play on this game would be on the under. I think there'll be more running from the Rebels, and if the weather is what it's supposed to be, messy and rainy, points could be harder to come by than a 61.5 point total indicates.
Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach, what a great coaching kind of rivalry game here, Tony. Do you put anything into the handicap of Lane Kiffin being talked about for the Auburn job, or not really? It really doesn't matter to you?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've heard that rumor. There's where there's smoke, there's fire, and he's still going to want to win this Egg Bowl for his guys. Now we'll see what happens down the road.
Guys, we got Friday, November 25th. It's almost like a little mini Saturday card here. It's kind of great. That's what this weekend offers. We're going to talk all 13 games on Friday right now. Write down in rotation order. If you're new to the Every Game on the Board podcast, we talk every single game, college football. So it's 113, 114, and we will end with 163, 164, which is a little bit out of rotation order. I don't know why they did it. I guess one game changed from Saturday to Friday. But we're going down the list here. All the Friday games. NC State at UNC, in-state battle of North Carolina. 3:30 Eastern here. 56 being the total. UNC -6.5 point home favorites. We know that UNC offense pretty good here, Tony. NC State 1-7 against the spread slide right now. They're also winless on the road against the spread. What are you thinking here in North Carolina?
Yeah, it seems like when Devin Leary went down, the entire Wolfpack offense went with it. So his injury changed the season for the Wolfpack. North Carolina is in a bounce back spot because they were held scoreless by Georgia Tech to suffer their first ACC loss last week. And Josh Downs, he's going to have a big game because he had a huge drop in the end zone, would have given them that lead and probably that win. So Downs and Drake May has been one of the most prolific pass combinations in the country. May no touchdown passes last week, which is a change for him. I think he'll bounce back. So this is a North Carolina spot for me.
Baylor and Texas up next, kicking us off on Saturday, 12 noon Eastern, 56 being the total. Texas Longhorns -8 in Austin.
Well, because Kansas State doesn't play until Saturday, Longhorns still have something to play for here. They're obviously humongous Kansas Jayhawks fans. Because if the Jayhawks do manage to pull the upset off over K-State, Texas will land a spot in the Big 12 title game. Obviously, the Wildcats are favored in that game. Nice bounce back from the Longhorns last week, scoring 55 against the Jayhawks after scoring a season low 10 previous week in that loss to TCU that they were favored in. So I think I'm a big Steve Sarkisian critic, but he's got the Longhorns playing well at the right time. Bijan Robinson is a beast. Everything starts with him, and I think they'll hold off Baylor. This Baylor team lost two of the better rookie defenders in the NFL this season, Petrie and the other kid who plays for the Bills. So their defense not as good as it was last season. I think Texas takes advantage.
Got a little action on Friday. Central Michigan and Eastern Michigan battle directional Michigan schools here. -2. That's the Chippewas as the road favorite. 55 being the total on the gray turf.
Yeah, I mean, Central Michigan's been dealing with injuries all season and shaky quarterback play, but that Bert Emanuel's kid, Bert Emanuel Jr., he's exciting to watch. Little dual threat, has one of the highlight runs of the season. Eastern Michigan is seeking its first in-season 3-game win streak since 2019. They've got their backup in Taylor Powell, who played at Mizzou and at Troy. He's in for Austin Smith, who got injured on the second play of action a few weeks ago. And Eastern has looked pretty good. Powell replacing him, and they're headed to a bowl. Central Michigan isn't. So unless it's a letdown spot, this is Eastern Michigan or pass.
Toledo and Western Michigan staying in America's favorite conference, the MAC. -7.5. That's the Rockets as the road favorite. 53 being the total.
Yeah, Rockets, we have to see whether Daquan Finn plays. That's their quarterback. He's been out the last couple of weeks. Big question mark next to his name for me. And if he doesn't play, I want no part of this because Toledo has already clinched their spot in the MAC championship opposite Ohio. And so they have very little to play for here outside of getting maybe potentially Finn's backup ready to play in that game if he's needed. Although I think we will see Finn in Detroit against the Bobcats.
Heading out west to the Mountain West up next. Utah State at Boise State. 12 noon Eastern. Tony, I'm guessing that's 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Pacific. Not 100% sure, but either way, this is an early kick in Boise, Idaho. -17. That's the Broncos on the blue turf. 51.5 being the total.
Yeah, it's a breakfast game for both of these teams. I'm going to take the points with Utah State. Blake Anderson has done a nice job getting this team to recover from a slow start. Always liked him at Arkansas State. Now he's in Logan, getting these Aggies together. And last year's Utah State team, his first one there, went 4-1 down the stretch and beat Oregon State in the inaugural LA Bowl. And this particular team is finishing strong as well. Boise's already wrapped up the Mountain West a spot in the Mountain West title game. So very little to play for. I think Boise wins, but Utah State covers.
Territorial Cup up next. Arizona State at Arizona. Wildcats -4-point home favorites. 65 being the total in Tucson, Arizona.
Yeah, I want no part of this game. But Jaden DeLora, mouthing off with teammates last week, a game that he really wanted to win against Washington State, and they got destroyed. He got picked off a couple of times, got into it with his receivers, and then ASU's just finishing out the string after firing Herm Edwards earlier this year. Sean Aguano probably not going to keep that job, although I do like Trenton Bourget, the quarterback that's emerged as their starter. So no, pass for me on this one.
We got, about 5 or 6 games left here, guys. He's Tony Meija at Mejia Dinero on Twitter. Check him out at WagerTalk.com. He's got a 5% play. He's cooking up right now for this weekend, and he's number 1 in 5% profits on the spread plays. 53 and 33. That's over 61% winners. So look out for his 5% plays. Obviously knows his college football. Knows his NBA as well. If you're looking for an NBA handicapper, check out Tony Meija. If you like a little bit more volume, he'll throw out some plays. So if you like pepper in the board, Tony, probably your guy. Check him out. Tony Meija, WagerTalk.com. 3:30 Eastern here. Arkansas and Missouri. Razorbacks -3-point road favorites. 55.5 being the total. Arkansas looked good against Ole Miss, Tony. Going up here, they're going to have to lay a short number on the road. Are you liking anything in this cross-divisional SEC matchup?
Yeah, I didn't know until today that this is called the Battle Line rivalry.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and here's another little nugget I didn't know. The Hogs have never won in Columbia. They're 0-5. I mean, dating back to like the 1920s, and their only win in Missouri in this rivalry, because it obviously went away for a long time, was in St. Louis back in 1944. So they've never won in Columbia, and Missouri needs this game to get bowl eligible. They beat New Mexico State last week, 45-14. But as you mentioned, Arkansas looked really good in beating Ole Miss. It's the healthiest KJ Jefferson has looked in weeks. So, proceed with caution if you're going to fade the Hogs and take the points with Mizzou. But obviously, Mizzou needs the game a little more than Arkansas does.
Tony, next game up, we got New Mexico and Colorado State. Talk about a low total here. 34.5 is the low water mark. We're seeing mostly 35s as the total. -7.5. That's the Rams at home.
Yeah, pair of 2-9 teams. So a lot of people will pass on that on this one. I will say Jay Norvell, first season in Colorado Springs. His team has been much more competitive late in the season than they were early. They've been competitive against Wyoming, Air Force, and San Jose State this month. Should win this game, should cover. This might be the end of the Danny Gonzalez era in New Mexico. All of the Lobos' losses have come by 11 or more points. I think this one will too.
Nebraska and Iowa heading to the Big Ten up next. Another low total here. 38.5 is the total, Tony. -10.5, as high as -11. That's the Hawkeyes in Iowa City.
Yeah, Huskers lost a lead. They gave Wisconsin all they wanted last week, then lost 15-14. Mickey Joseph is 2-6 since replacing Scott Frost. Obviously, the Huskers are in for another facelift at the end of the season. We'll see who ends up leading their program. Iowa, whether we like it or not, a win here, they're going to be the West Division champion, get a rematch with the Ohio State-Michigan winner. They win ugly. Their defense is still solid. They'll win this game. By margin? Probably.
Heading to the Conference of Champions up next, UCLA in California. 130 Pacific kick in this one. -10. That's the Bruins as the road favorite. 60 the total in Berkeley.
Yeah, the freshman running back Jaden Ott is legit. I mean, he's the best running back they've had there since Marshawn Lynch. Come off a win in the big game where they rallied past Stanford. I don't know if you saw that Stanford kicked that field goal to hit the total and celebrate. It was the last play of the game. It was 27-20. We're celebrating Stanford unless they parlayed the over in that game. But this is also how does UCLA recover from that really tough loss to USC? So interesting to see that, see if Zach Charbonnet plays. This would be a UCLA or pass spot for me.
We got the Sunshine State battle up next, Tony. Friday night, 7:30 Eastern, Tallahassee, Florida. Florida Gators, Florida State Seminoles. 58 being the total. We're seeing the Noles -9.5. Offshore book showing -10. So Florida at Florida State -9.5 point favorites here, Tony.
Florida State has been tremendous down the stretch, and Florida comes off a loss to Vanderbilt. So the only way you can play this is to take the points here, because you probably wouldn't have gotten 10 points with the Gators as recently as 2 to 3 weeks ago. FSU is on a 4-game win streak. They're up to number 16 in the CFP rankings. Jay Norvell 0-1 against the Gators, and this is obviously Billy Napier's first one of these rivalry games. I think the Gators will bounce back to at least make this a game. 10 points too much for me.
2 games left here, guys. Mountain West, Wyoming and Fresno State up next. Bulldogs -15 point home favorites. 50.5 being the total in the Valley.
Yeah, Fresno already in the Mountain West Conference title game opposite Boise. They've been great since Jake Hayner returned to the lineup. 6 straight wins, and they've averaged 41 points per game over the last 5. Wyoming, typically hangs around, but I think Fresno State is a train I do not want to step in front of right now.
1 game left here for the Friday slate to end the segment. We got Tony Meija. Check him out, WagerTalk.com, at Mejia Dinero on Twitter. His max plays #1 in 5% profits on the spread plays, 53-33. Knows his NBA as well. Tulane and Cincinnati, 163, 164, the rotation number here, Tony. Last game on the card for Friday, 46.5 being the total. Cincy -1 at home. Tulane making the trip from the Big Easy up to Cincinnati. I believe this has AAC championship implications. You liking anything Green Wave and Cincinnati here? Good game.
Yeah, this is flex to your national ABC broadcast. That's why it's bottom of the board, but early kickoff at noon. Winner goes to the American Athletic Conference title game. It actually gets to host it because UCF lost to Navy, but UCF ended up holding on to the number 22 spot in the rankings, which means that so long as they handle business against South Florida, they will be in the game against the winner of this one. So the loser of this one, goes home and cries in their milk because a ton on the line for this game. Ben Bryant, the Bearcats quarterback, is banged up, so it might be sophomore Evan Prater in at quarterback. I've loved what I've seen. I told you in Vegas, I love Tulane this year. I've loved what I've seen from Michael Pratt. I'm rooting for the Green Wave. Give me the points with Tulane at Cincinnati.
And a bonus pick, anything I-4, the war on I-4, UCF and USF?
I honestly think that USF has nothing to play for but to ruin our season. So, and the fact that John Rice Plumlee is dealing with a shoulder thing, I think UCF wins, but South Florida finds a way to cover at home. Of course, the most fun thing to UCF Knights fans is to destroy the South Florida team that once blocked UCF's entry into the Big East to the point where it took state legislation to force USF to play UCF. This is back in almost 20 years ago. So we always have a special place in our hearts to hate South Florida, and they continue to be a disaster this year. So I probably won't touch the game, but I will obviously be watching as a fan.
Tony Meija, guys, a little bit about his background. He's a former beat writer for the UCF football and basketball teams, I believe, Tony. What happened with UCF in Navy, man? That was one of the surprising losses of the weekend.
Tough game for UCF in terms of their offense just sputtered, and the Navy did what Navy does, where they line up and beat you up for 60 minutes, and their offense held the football. And the quarterback change at halftime was the right one. Mikey King coming in for Plumlee because Plumlee was banged up, but King couldn't get it done this season. He still had a great year, and again, it does not hurt. Outside of it, cost UCF the chance to win to host the AAC title game, but given how the rankings have come out, UCF will still get to play in it against the Green Wave Bearcats winner, either in New Orleans or Cincinnati.
And is there one you're actually rooting for? Tulane, you said?
I'm rooting for Tulane to finish off a season that few saw coming, and they haven't had any success since Chris Selfo was there like years ago, and Sean King, who I think is in our gambling space now, but since he was the quarterback back then, so I mean we're talking 30 years. They just haven't had much success there. So to finish off this season, I hope Tulane gets it done, especially since Cincinnati was just in there last year and leaves for the Big 12 alongside UCF next year.
He's Tony Meija. Tony, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Obviously knows his college football, guys. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. Tony, do you have any final thoughts before we shut it down? And do you have a most confident play of the section, one you like the most?
Well, the season's flown by, and so we still get December football and bowl games and championship games. But yeah, it's been a wild last few months. Game I like the most. I would say that I think we'll ride with Fresno State against Wyoming at home, even though maybe a first half play, just because Wyoming, they'll fight you for 60 minutes. But I think Hayner's been so good of late, and they're at home. Maybe lay that first half line with Fresno, probably like 10 to 12 points. I haven't looked, but Fresno first half.
Fresno State first half for Tony Meija. All right, Tony, great stuff as always. Enjoy the weekend, man, and we'll talk next week. Maybe have a bowl section if you got the time. But guys, check out Tony Meija, WagerTalk.com. Cash those tickets. Taking a short break. We'll be back with Kelly in Vegas at 5:30 Eastern to break down the last section of every game on the board. Please smash that like button. Feel free to comment below. Cash those tickets. Thanks for tuning in.